Hello and welcome to the first episode of Down to the Tyre in 2024. As I'm recording this, it's New Year's Day, 2024 has just begun, and I can speak for myself. I am so excited about the 2024 motorsport calendar that we have to look forward to. So I thought I'd do my first episode of the year as a bit of a preview of the year. Drivers I think you should look out for, championships I think you should watch, just a lovely overview of all the exciting things we have to look forward to. And I am also going to look back at some of the things that have happened over the past few weeks, because even though it's the off season, it seems to be that during the off season, that's when all the drama comes out. That's when the strange things start happening, things that maybe weren't on your 2023 bingo card ended up happening in December. So yeah, I'm going to talk about a few of those because I do think they're important to talk about, and it'll be nice to reflect on some of the things that have happened since I last uploaded an episode. And then we'll be looking forward to 2024, bit of a preview of what's to come for motorsport this year. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then please do keep listening and let's get right into it. Now, where do we even start? I think the biggest announcement in terms of feeder series that we've had in the past couple of weeks is the news about the Ferrari Driver Academy. They have announced who their 6 members are going to be in 2024, which is really exciting, and I think it's definitely worth talking about. So I'm going to talk a bit about each of the members and kind of what I'm expecting from them in 2024, as well as a bit about the 2 members who are no longer part of the Driver Academy, which I think has probably been the thing that people have been most focused on with this announcement, because it is quite a surprise. So let's get straight into that. Now, I think the biggest surprise when they made this announcement was that Arthur Leclerc was no longer going to be part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, but they've said that he's still going to be part of the Ferrari family. And to me, this rings very familiar to what they did with Callum Ilott when he moved to IndyCar from Formula 2, because there weren't any seats available for him in Formula 1. They said that he was kind of taking a hiatus from the academy, and I kind of feel like that's what Arthur's doing as well. And I believe that's because he's not going to be in Formula 2 next year. I don't think he's going to be in single seaters at all next year. I've heard a lot of rumours that he's switching to GT3 cars. I feel like that would make perfect sense as to why he's not in the academy anymore, because they don't tend to have drivers in the academy unless they're on the road to F1. So I feel like that could be why Arthur Leclerc has been removed from the academy. He didn't have a wow year in Formula 2, to be honest. I feel like it was okay for a rookie year, but it wasn't anything to write home about. He wasn't one of the drivers who I was most impressed with throughout the year. And I feel like he did make some rookie mistakes, which he's allowed to do because he was a rookie. But I feel like he didn't have the best of seasons with Dams in F2 in 2023. And I feel like he's probably realising that there aren't any opportunities in F1 at the moment, and obviously they have Oliver Bearman in F2 as well. So I feel like they perhaps just want to focus on him and getting him to Formula 1, because I do think he's probably their most promising prospect right now. Obviously Oliver Bearman's linked to Haas as well. He's been doing some FP1 sessions for them, and they've recently said that they're open to taking rookies in 2025, so I do feel like Oliver Bearman stands a very good chance. So I feel like that could be the reason that Arthur Leclerc is no longer part of the academy, either because they just want to focus on Oliver Bearman and they're both at a very similar level, or because Arthur Leclerc won't be doing the F1 feeder series ladder this year and he will be doing something different, which I've heard GT3 cars as the most rumoured option for him. So that's my opinion on him. Kind of similar to the fact that Paul Aron has been dropped from the Mercedes Academy, with Andrea Kimi Antonelli stepping up to Formula 2. I feel like it's very popular for driver academies at the moment to want only one driver in each level of the feeder series, especially as you're getting up towards F2 and F3. I feel like they are aware that there's not that many opportunities in F1 right now. So realistically, if they have 2 or 3 or even 6 like Red Bull had last year in the same series, there's just no chance that all of those are going to be able to make it to Formula One. So they're putting money into these junior drivers' careers and giving them hope, when in reality, there just aren't opportunities for them in Formula One. So I imagine they want to put all their time and investment into one driver, because that makes them so much more likely to actually make it through to F1 than if they had multiple drivers who they're all putting investment into. So yeah, that's my opinion on Arthur Leclerc and why I think he's no longer in the Ferrari Driver Academy. Now, James Wharton is a driver I am much more confused about. It's not really been announced why James Wharton isn't going to be in the Ferrari Driver Academy next year, but I kind of expected him to be based on his results. It's quite shocking that he's not going to be, because he won F4 UAE this year, and I feel like he's had a pretty solid year since. I'd say that was the highlight of the year for him, but still his campaigns in Italian F4 and Euro 4 have been impressive. I mean, he finished second in Euro 4 and then fourth in Italian F4, which was higher in both of those championships than Tuukka Tarppanen, who will remain in the academy and who is doing FRECA next year. So I wonder if that was a decision that James made himself to leave the academy, or if it was on the Ferrari side. Again, I feel like they probably would prefer to not have too many drivers in FRECA, because they do already have another driver who will be doing FRECA this year. It's so confusing it being 2024 now. I keep saying next year when it's actually this year now. But they will have Tuukka Tarppanen in FRECA this year, along with another driver as well, who I'll get on to talking about. So I feel like perhaps they don't want to have 3 drivers in FRECA. Not that James Wharton has been confirmed for FRECA yet, but I imagine that is where he's most likely to go. But if he does go to FIA F3, then they've got the same situation if they already have Dino Bogdanovic in F3. So then they'd have 2 drivers in the same championship. So I wonder if that's where this is coming from and the reason they've dropped James Wharton. But it does seem very strange when you look at his results, because he has had a very good year. I mean, winning F4 UAE in January, and then second in the Euro 4 championship behind Ugo Chukwu, and then 4th in the Italian F4 championship behind Kasper Stuka, Ugo Chukwu and Arvid Lindblad, who are obviously all very good drivers, 2 of which will be going to F3 next year, it's looking like, and then 1 who will be going to FRECA. So I'm very intrigued to see what James Wharton does next, whether he ends up in FRECA or in F3, but I do feel like it may be a case of Ferrari just want to zone in on the drivers that they've got, and they don't want to have too many drivers at the same level, because they do already have quite a few drivers at that FRECA level. But I'm not sure. I think James Wharton is incredibly talented, and I do think he deserves to be part of an academy. So yeah, I wish him all the best for the future. I really do hope that he has something lined up, because he really does deserve to have a long and successful career. So those are the 2 drivers who are no longer part of the Ferrari Driver Academy for this year, but I want to talk about the people who are still in it, because there are very talented drivers they've got, even though they've got the same amount of drivers in their overall academy as Red Bull had just in F2 in 2023, which is pretty crazy. But I respect the fact that they're zoning in on these 6 and really focusing on them. And I'm going to start by talking about Ollie Behrman, who I've already mentioned. He's going into his 2nd year with Prema in Formula 2. I mean, I don't have much to say about him except for he's definitely going to be a championship contender alongside his teammate Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who's part of the Mercedes Academy. I have no doubt that Oliver Behrman is going to be going for the championship this year. He narrowly missed out on Rookie of the Year in 2023 to Victor Martins, but I do just think Oliver Behrman is going to step up in 2024. I think he's going to have an absolutely amazing season, and yeah, I have no doubt that he's going to be a championship contender. And another driver who I think that about, but in FIA F3, is Dino Bogdanovic, who is the Ferrari Driver Academy's only driver who's going to be in F3 next year. And I think, again, he performed slightly worse than I was expecting in 2023. I thought the position that Paul Aron was in, I thought that's where Dino was going to be, but he wasn't, unfortunately. He was behind his teammates, Zach O'Sullivan and Paul Aron. whereas I thought he was going to be up there with them or perhaps even outperforming them, and I was wrong. But I think Dino Bogdanovic is going to step it up in 2024. He's obviously seen Paul Aron, his teammate, who they were at the same level together. They were in FRECA together fighting for that title, which Dino came out on top in. And I feel like he's seen him make that step up to F2, and he's going to be determined to step up to F2 for the 2025 season. So he knows he needs to be a championship contender in 2023. He's sticking with Prema, so just like Ollie Behrman, he's going to have got used to the car, used to the team. I think he's going to be absolutely on top of things, and I really do think that he is going to be a championship contender in FIA F3 next year. As I've already mentioned, the Ferrari Driver Academy will have 2 drivers in Formula Regional European Championship in 2024, or FRECA as it's more commonly known. The first one I'm going to talk about is Rafael Camara, who finished 5th in the championship in 2023. Technically, he wasn't a rookie because he did the full season of the 2023 Formula Regional Middle East Championship with Mumbai Falcons, and he finished 3rd in the standings in that championship. But obviously, because he'd had that experience in the Formula Regional car, he wasn't considered a rookie for the 2023 FRECA season. Just like Andrea Kimi Antonelli, he'd already done a Formula Regional Series, but they kind of were rookies when it came to the European Championship, just not technically rookies when it came to the actual categorization within the Rookie Championship, which Martini Stenshorn won, and just the General Championship. But Rafael Camara had a very, very good year in FRECA. He had 2 wins and then 1 P2 and then 1 P3 as well in the first race of the championship. So I think overall he had a very strong rookie year, if you can call it that, which technically you can't. But he'll be doing the championship again in 2024, sticking with Prema. So again, just like Dino Bogdanovic and Ollie Behrman, they will all be with the same team in the same championship, and no doubt they will all be going for the titles. I do think Rafael Camara is going to be fighting for that title. I'm sure he learned a lot from being teammates with Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Lorenzo Flusha, who is a bit of a veteran of the Formula Regional Series. I'm sure he learned so much from him and from Kimi Antonelli, who is insanely talented. So I have no doubt that in 2024, Rafael Camara is going to be a championship contender in FRECA. Now, the other driver that the Ferrari Driver Academy will have in FRECA for 2024 is Tuukka Tarppanen. Now, I think he's in a pretty different boat to where Rafael Camara is, because he is stepping up from F4. He did Italian F4 and Euro 4 this year. And I feel like, obviously, with Rafael Camara, he's had a year in the championship. He's done Formula Regional Middle East as well. And I feel like he is more used to the car and used to what he's doing in a Formula Regional Series than Tuukka Tarppanen is, who will be stepping up from F4. So I feel like they're in very different places despite being in the same championship. Whereas Rafael Camara is going to be fighting for the championship. He's going to be up there at the top. I feel like Tuukka Tarppanen is going to have quite a learning year. He's going to be a rookie in the Formula Regional Series. He's going to be getting used to the car. He's going to be getting used to the team. I mean, he's an incredibly talented driver. He finished 5th in both Italian F4 and Euro 4 this year. I mean, talk about consistency. He finished the same position in both championships with highlights of 2 third places in the Euro 4 championship. And then in Italian F4, he did have a win in one race and then 3 podiums in other races, P3s. So overall 4 podiums with 1 win being included in that. And a P2 as well. Wow, 3 P2s. I'm just looking at his stats, and he had a mega year for someone who finished in P5 in the standings. I had no idea that he had that many podium finishes. I feel like because there were so many drivers like Kasper Stuka, Ugo Gachuku, Arvid Lindblad, James Wharton, who all finished above him, they were all obviously incredible drivers. But I think I'd forgotten how much of a great year Tuukka Tarppanen actually had. Like, that's incredible. So yeah, overall, like 7 podiums with one of them being a win is an incredible season in Italian F4, which is, in my opinion, probably the most competitive F4 series that there is out there. Like, I think Italian F4 is insanely competitive, and then obviously Euro 4 runs alongside it, and he did well in that as well. So I have very high hopes for Tuukka Tarppanen in FRECA. But having said that, I do think he's going to be not fighting for the championship because he'll be a rookie. I think he's going to just be up there in the top 10 of the standings, but I feel like he's going to be learning and adapting and growing and getting used to things at the same time. So that's my prediction for Tuukka Tarppanen. So even though Ferrari have 2 drivers who are in the FRECA series, I do feel like they're going to be having very different experiences of it, just purely based on their experience and the stage that they're at in their career. And finally, we have the 2 drivers who will be part of the Ferrari Driver Academy and who will also be in F1 Academy in 2024, and that is Maya Wurg. Thank you to the person who corrected me on the pronunciation of her name on my TikTok, because I was pronouncing it Maya, but it's Maya, and Aurelia Nobles. Now, they're both coming from very different places. Aurelia's coming from an F4 series, Italian F4, whereas Maya is coming from FRECA. Now, a lot of people have questioned why Maya is stepping from FRECA back down to F1 Academy, which is technically an F4 series, when we know from what Marta Garcia has received as the prize, that the prize is a seat in FRECA. But I feel like I made a TikTok about this, discussing this, and after discussion in the comments and everything, I feel like even though it doesn't make sense in the sense that she is taking a step back to an F4 series, it kind of makes sense in the sense that she will get so much exposure and so much recognition from being in F1 Academy, as well as so much testing time and all of that stuff, and being on the F1 circuit, that I do feel like there are benefits of her doing F1 Academy, even though it does seem to be a bit of a backward step going from FRECA to an F4 series, which is what F1 Academy is. But I get the pros and cons. I see both sides. I can maybe assume that there just wasn't a better seat for her in FRECA at this point in time, because in 2023 she did the FRECA season with Kick Motorsport, who are not a top team whatsoever, and I feel like perhaps she just didn't have a better opportunity in FRECA for 2024, whereas if she goes to F1 Academy and wins that, then she'll probably get a better FRECA seat. So it does make sense, but it does also seem like a step backwards. I'm still very mixed on how I feel about it. I see the pros and cons. And then we have Aurelia Nobles, who did Italian F4 and Euro 4 in 2023. She finished P22 in Euro 4 and P26 in Italian F4. Now, stepping to F1 Academy makes so much more sense for her, in my opinion, because she is stepping up from an F4 series to what is still an F4 series and F1 Academy, but it will be an F4 series where she'll get a lot more opportunity and recognition, and I think it makes perfect sense for her to do that. Obviously, the only other step she could make was FRECA, and if Maya Wurg isn't getting opportunities in FRECA in 2024, then I doubt Aurelia Nobles would as well. Obviously, with that being a highly competitive championship, it probably is a wiser decision to step out and do F1 Academy in the hopes that then that will get her a top seat in FRECA, because I imagine if she tried to do FRECA in 2024, she wouldn't be able to get with a top team. She'd have to settle for a back marker. But I feel like overall it's probably a good decision for both of them, and Ferrari probably know what they're doing. It is just a shame with Maya to see a driver that seems to be making a step backwards, but hopefully it ends up being a step forwards in the long run. Okay, well, now that's the Ferrari Driver Academy section of this podcast wrapped up. It's time to move on to talking about something else, and it's something quite different because it's not an announcement that has happened over the winter break, the off season, but it's a bit of controversy, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because I feel like by this point that I'm uploading this, everyone's spoken about it so much. Like, everyone's heard about it, and I don't want to bring it back up and overhype it and overdo it, because I do feel like it's been spoken about probably enough at this point. But I did just want to touch on it because it happened while I wasn't filming any podcast episodes, and that is what's happened with Bianca Bustamante liking a tweet on Twitter that used autism as an insult. Now, I feel like I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I do feel like I don't have much to add about this because I have already spoken about it on TikTok, but I didn't want to just not mention it at all in an episode, because I feel like it is important to speak about and important to mention, because it is, you know, something that we do need to talk about. Ableism in motorsport is something that we need to make sure isn't happening. So I'm just going to talk about that briefly. It won't be a long segment of this episode, and if you're fed up with hearing about it, you can skip this part. But yeah, I just thought it was important to mention it because I didn't want it to go completely unmentioned on the podcast, even though I have made a TikTok about this. I think the bottom line of the situation is that drivers need to be incredibly careful with what they're liking on Twitter. And I personally I think the act of liking a fan's tweet on Twitter, whether it's, you know, of the nature that the one Bianca liked is or not, whether it's just a fan tweet, I just don't think it's very professional to like content made by fans that is of a hate approach. And I know people have said that Bianca has done this a few times in the past with Lance Stroll, although this is the first instance where it has been ableist. And I know a lot of people have been saying, well, Max called him a slur on the team radio before, and that's not okay either. That it's not okay at all to be using that sort of language and to be using autism as an insult, or just to be liking content hating on other drivers at all. To be honest, especially when it's content made by a fan, I do just think that's immature. And I know she's 18, which is quite young, but she is also an adult. So I was really glad to see her take responsibility for her actions and put out an apology, which I think was the right thing to do in that situation. I've seen a lot of people saying they don't believe her apology, that they don't think she unliked the tweet, but I wasn't actually active on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, when this situation happened. I saw it all afterwards, so I'm not going to speculate about whether that's true or not. But yeah, I just feel like what she did was a mistake, as in like it was, I'm not saying it was an accident or not, but it was a mistake to like that tweet. Like she shouldn't have done it. And I feel like a lot of people have been citing misogyny as the reason why she's received so much backlash, but I just don't think that's true. I mean, after what happened with Yuri Vips, he has not driven since then. He got a couple of races in IndyCar and then they didn't even choose to sign him. And I feel like he lost pretty much everything he had from that situation happening, as he should have done. I'm not saying he shouldn't have done, but he lost his spot in the Red Bull team, the junior team that he was in at that point, as well as his reserve role that he had through that. And he lost his seat in Formula 2. So I feel like it is proven that this can happen to anybody. It's not just because it was a woman who made, well, she didn't make a comment, did she? I was going to say who made that comment, but who liked a comment that wasn't appropriate. But yeah, I feel like with Yuri Vips, obviously he did stay at F2 for the rest of that year, but then his contract was terminated at the end of that year and he wasn't given a drive in F2 the year afterwards, which I don't know if he would have taken if he had got offered one, but as far as I know, he wasn't offered anything after that. Everyone kind of distanced themselves from him, and yeah, he pretty much lost his entire career. I have no doubt that he would have been seen at AlphaTauri in the following year after that happened if he hadn't made those comments. But that's what happens, you know. He messed up big time, and I think he's shown remorse, and he's been on courses that have educated him, which is really great to see. It's great to see him growing and changing and evolving from his mistakes. But I think it's unfair to say that people are only attacking Bianca because of misogyny. I just think any driver who makes a mistake like that should be held accountable for it. And I think by admitting to her mistake and apologising, I think she has held herself accountable, which is great to see. In terms of the Bianca Bustamante situation specifically, though, I don't really have much more to add. Whether people choose to continue supporting her or not is entirely up to them. I know a lot of people have said they're not going to support her, and that's a completely independent decision that people can make for themselves. But I will just say, if you do choose not to support her anymore, just remember that there's so many other really talented female drivers who are at the same level of motorsport as her, whether that's in Formula 4, FRECA, Formula 3, even with Sophia Flörsch, or F1 Academy itself. There are so many brilliant female drivers to support. So I just urge you that if you are choosing not to support her, please don't let this be a reflection on all women in motorsport. It's not a reflection at all. Bianca, well, she's often called the face of women's motorsport, which I know a lot of people have taken issue to since that kind of spread on TikTok and the rest of the internet, which I don't think it's necessary to have a face of women's motorsport. I think, honestly, Like, there should be faces of it. There's so many female drivers out there, and just women who work in motorsport as well. It's important to remember them as well. I don't think we should narrow it down to just having one face of women's motorsport, because it's not necessary. There are so many who are doing really well, doing great things, and they should all be recognised and celebrated, and they should be, you know, applauded for all their achievements. It shouldn't just be all placed on one woman, and Bianca isn't just representative of all women in motorsport. Her action reflects her, and it doesn't reflect everyone. So I do urge that if you do choose not to support her anymore, just please go and support other women who are in F1 Academy, who are in FRECA, who are in any series instead, if you want to. Just don't completely stop supporting women in motorsport, because we've come a long way, and it's not fair to let one girl ruin that, even though she's an adult. And I don't support the fact that she was like, oh, I'm a kid who made a mistake. Like, I don't know, it wasn't right to say that, and she did delete that. But I just don't think her action should reflect all women in motorsport. Just remember that there's plenty of others who are amazing. And while I'm not saying you should stop supporting Bianca, that's a decision that I can't tell you what to do in that situation. It's your choice whether you want to support her or not. That's not something I should advise on. But either way, even if you do carry on supporting her, or if you don't, just remember that there are plenty of other women in motorsport to support, and there's nothing that says you can only support one. I mean, the more women who are in motorsport, the better, and we should support as many of them as we can. And it's not saying you have to support every female driver, but just remember that you can support as many as you wish to, and it's important to give them all, you know, the platform and show them all that support, regardless of how active they are on social media. I know that's why Bianca's got so popular, of course, but yeah, just remember that there's others as well. So I think we've dwelled enough on the past now. It's time to look to the future. So this segment is going to be talking about 2024 and what we've got to look forward to this year. Now, I want to start by talking about something that's going to happen before F1 has even started, before all the main championships begin in March. There's a lot going on before then, and I really do just want to focus on those first, because I know a lot of people are super bored during the off season and want things to watch, and I have the cure. I have the cure for that, and it's in the form of a few Formula Regional and Formula 4 series that are taking place this month and next month that you should absolutely watch. So let's get straight into that. I'm going to start with F4 UAE because I've already mentioned it when I was talking about James Wharton, and because I absolutely love this championship. It will be the 8th season and the last under this moniker. The championship will be changing branding to F4 Middle East Championship from next year onwards, but for now it's still F4 UAE, so we can still call it that. It's an F4 series that takes place in the United Arab Emirates, regulated according to F4 regulations set by the FIA, and it's organised and promoted by the Emirates Motorsport Organisation and Top Speed. So the regular season of the championship will commence on the 12th of January at the Yas Marina circuit and will conclude on the 18th of February at the Dubai Autodrome, which I absolutely love that it's a championship that is wrapped up so quickly, because I don't have the longest attention span, and I feel like it's just so nice to know in a space of a month and a half who has won a championship. Like that keeps me captivated, it keeps me hooked for that period of time. So I definitely recommend watching it if you want something short that you can watch during the off season that will be finished before F1 and other championships like F2, F3, etc. get going. So it starts off with a trophy round, which has already taken place because that took place in November of 2023. But the actual season, as I said before, starts on the 12th of January. So that explains why, if you are looking into it and a round has already happened, that is a trophy round, which means it does not count towards the championship at all. So it's just a completely standalone round. And a lot of drivers who competed in that are people you've probably heard of, like Dion Gouda, Hamda Al-Khabaisi, Amna Al-Khabaisi, Freddie Slater, people like that. It's quite a draw for people who are at that kind of F4 level. But that's already taken place, so we won't dwell on that too much. Jessica Edgar also did it though, which is a good one to mention, because obviously she was in F1 Academy in 2023, so she's one who people will probably be quite familiar with. While the actual lineup for the full season hasn't been confirmed yet, there are still a lot of drivers to be announced, so I'm not going to go through the drivers who will be competing in the 2024 season of that championship, because there's just so many gaps that I don't think it would be that helpful to anyone. And plus, a lot of drivers kind of come in and do a couple of rounds in it, so even the ones who have been announced, it's not been confirmed which rounds they'll be doing, whether they'll be doing the whole season or whether they'll just be doing certain rounds. So I don't think it would be very helpful to go through them. But a lot of the rounds take place at Yas Marina, which is obviously the circuit that F1 use in Abu Dhabi, so it's a circuit that a lot of people will already be familiar with. The first round takes place there, as does the second round, and then there's a round at the Dubai Autodrome on the 2nd of February, back to Yas Marina on the 9th of February, and then back to the Dubai Autodrome for the final round of the championship on the 16th of February. So there are 5 rounds overall, 6 if you include the trophy round, but since that's already in the past, 5 rounds in the actual championship. And I just think it is brilliant. Honestly, I can't speak highly enough about this championship. If you're interested in feeder series, if you're bored during the off season, then what better reason than to watch an F4 series, which you'll know the championship winner of by the 18th of February. So yeah, at the very latest as well. That's assuming someone doesn't wrap it up early. So yeah, that's a championship that I think is a must watch for 2024. And while you're watching F4 UAE, you might as well watch Formula Regional Middle East, since it takes place on the exact same tracks, on the exact same dates, because F4 UAE is actually a support series for Formula Regional Middle East. So, I mean, if you're going to watch F4 UAE, you might as well watch Formula Regional Middle East as well. And obviously once F4 UAE's name has changed to Formula 4 Middle East, they'll line up with each other, I assume. That's why they're doing that. But 2023 was actually the first ever year of Formula Regional Middle East. If you're familiar with FRECA, it's basically the same, except for it runs in the Middle East, obviously, hence the name, and it runs in January to February rather than being a full year championship. So if you're a fan of FRECA, then Formula Regional Middle East is basically like a little bite-sized FRECA that takes place over the winter, so you're going to love it. In 2023, Andrea Kimi Antonelli was the Drivers' Champion and the Rookie Cup winner, which, I mean, is no surprise to anyone who is a fan of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, because now he's gone on to do absolutely amazing things in FRECA and in F2 for this year, which I'm so excited for. He is incredible, and I could probably spend the rest of this episode just talking about how good I think Andrea Kimi Antonelli is, but I'm not going to do that, because that's a topic for another episode when I'm talking about my F2 predictions, which will be coming once the full grid has been announced, so definitely stay tuned for that. But as well as Andrea Kimi Antonelli, there are a lot of drivers who you've probably heard of from FRECA or Formula 3 who were in Formula Regional Middle East in 2023. Taylor Barnard had a great year in F3 following it. Rafael Camara and Lorenzo Flusha both went on to do FRECA. Mari Boyer, again, this set him up very nicely for the 2023 F3 season, along with Pepe Marti, who made such a jump between the end of his 2022 F3 season and the beginning of his 2023 one, that I truly think that doing Formula Regional Middle East in between was what helped that. Nikita Bedrin as well got 2 wins towards the end of Formula Regional Middle East that I think really helped him to step up to F3. Sami Megatunif will be stepping up to F3 this year, and he did Formula Regional Middle East last year before going on to do FRECA. Gino Boganovic did the first 2 rounds and won 2 races in the process. So yeah, there are a lot of names that you will perhaps recognise now who did Formula Regional Middle East last year. So chances are that when it happens in 2024, there's going to be a lot of names that you either already recognise or names that this championship will introduce you to before they go on to do full seasons of FRECA or full seasons of FIA F3 in 2024. So that's why I highly recommend Formula Regional Middle East as one to watch. And there is one more Formula Regional series that I think you should watch over the winter break, and that is the Formula Regional Oceania Championship. Now, if you're a fan of Screaming Meals, a fan of Marcus Armstrong and Clement Novalak, if you've heard them talking about Toyota Racing Series, or TRS, which is held in New Zealand, this is what it's called now. So this is TRS, just with a new name, basically. It's held over 5 consecutive weekends in January and February, which is music to my ears, because as I said before, with F4 UAE, I love a championship that wraps up quickly, that keeps me glued, keeps my attention, and FROC definitely is a championship like that. Last year, Charlie Wirtz won it and then went on to do FRECA and Euroformula Open in 2023. This year, there's quite a few drivers that, again, you may have heard of, particularly if you're a fan of US racing, like F4 US. There's quite a few drivers who are stepping over from that. And another big talking point about this series is that it's supplying all cars with 100% fossil-free fuel, and it's the first Formula Regional Championship to take this sustainability step. So if you're interested in sustainable racing, then this is definitely one to watch for you. Drivers who you may recognise include Michael Sheen, Roman Belinsky, Gerard Stay, Titus Sherlock, Jet Bowling, people like that. Christian Mansell as well is going to be there. So yeah, if you fancy another Formula Regional series to keep you entertained throughout January and February, then this is definitely one for you. It starts on the 19th of January and it finishes on the 18th of February. So very, very quick and easy, 5 weekends in a row. I highly recommend it. Speaking of liking sustainable racing, I mean, an obvious series that starts in January is Formula E. Now, I was really looking forward to being able to talk about this one and how great it is that it's free to watch in so many countries. But in my country, the UK, it just got put behind a paywall. So I'm not going to be able to talk about it from that angle anymore. But luckily, the 3 other series that I've mentioned previously, F4 UAE, Formula Regional Middle East and Formula Regional Oceania, they are all free to watch. They're usually streamed on the motorsport.tv app or on YouTube. So at least we've got those. But Formula E will no longer be free to watch. But if you do have TNT Sport, or if you are lucky enough to be in a country where it is free to watch, then, I mean, this segment is probably more aimed at you than anyone else, because I won't be able to watch the 2023 to 2024 FIA FE. That always sounds really weird to me. You say that F2 and F3, but Formula E FE just doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely. But anyway, the Formula E Championship, I won't be able to watch it as much as I have done previously this year, as I don't have TNT Sport. But it's the 10th season of the championship. Obviously, all the vehicles are electric powered. So if you're a fan of sustainability, which we all should be, but if you're very passionate about sustainability, we should all care about it and we should all be pushing forward to try and make motorsport as sustainable as possible. And Formula E is doing that. It's the highest class of competition for electric open wheel cars, and the championship name is quite confusing because it's the 2023 to 2024 season, but all races are held in 2024. So you've not missed any if you're concerned about that. When I called it the 2023 to 2024 championship, all races are held in 2024, so don't worry about that. But I mean, there are so many big names in Formula E who probably, a lot of them kind of didn't get what they deserved from the F1 feeder series ladder. People like Dan Tickturm, Robin Frines, Jake Hughes, Sam Bird, Maximilian Gunter, Mitch Evans and Nick Cassidy, Felix da Costa, and then Jake Dennis, who won it in 2023. So there are so many. I could have named so many more. Obviously, Nick de Vries is no longer in F1. Well, he'll be in Formula E instead. Pascal Wehrlein, Jehan Daruvala will be stepping over from F2 to do Formula E. I never know if it's Daruvala or Daruvala. I think it's Daruvala. But again, as we've established from my pronunciation of Maya work, my pronunciation is not my strong point. But yeah, there's so many drivers who you've probably heard of in Formula E that you may not realise are in Formula E. So I definitely recommend watching it if you are able to. I know they've made it harder than ever to watch it in 2024, but I really, really do think it's going to be a great year. I'm really interested to see if Jake Dennis can retain his title. Mitch Evans and Nick Cassidy as teammates is going to be amazing to watch, because obviously they're both Kiwi, and also they were both championship contenders in 2023. So I think Jaguar have a really strong lineup. I think my money will be on Jaguar doing very well in 2024. That's my best bet when it comes to Formula E. But there are so many talented drivers and so many brilliant teams that I highly recommend watching it if you can. They're all the winter series that I wanted to give a shout out to, so I guess it makes sense to do a new section of this podcast, and that's just going to be talking about the rest of the year, but I'm going to be very brief about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail because for a lot of the championships that I want to talk about, the whole grid hasn't been announced yet, and I don't want to make predictions or put too much out there when who knows what's going to happen. So many drivers who are yet to be announced could come in and completely change my predictions, and I don't want to jinx anything. So I feel like I'm going to be quite brief about the rest of the championships where we don't know that much about what's going on yet, and I'm going to do full prediction videos for things like Formula 2 and Formula 3, so please do check those out when they're out, which will be once the grid has been fully announced. But for now, I'm just kind of going to do a brief 2024 preview for the full seasons that take place for the whole year from March to about November, because they're the main ones. It's the main event. It's what we're all really here for. So yeah, I'm going to just talk about some things that I am particularly excited about for 2024. I think the main thing I'm excited about for 2024 in terms of motorsport is Formula 2. I just think that it's going to be one of the best seasons of Formula 2 we've had ever. I saw a video that Tomo made about this, saying that he thinks that the 2024 Formula 2 season is going to be the best we've had yet. And honestly, I can't even disagree. I love Tomo and I think he's spot on with this. I really do think it's going to be an absolutely brilliant season, rivaling the season we had in 2018 with George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon all competing. I do think that this one's going to be just as good, if not maybe even better, but we'll see. But for now, looking at the lineup that we've got, I really do just think it's going to be amazing. Obviously, we've got the new car coming in, which is really, really exciting. I think that's just going to be exciting in and of itself to have a new car. Obviously, Formula 2's had the same car for its whole modern era as F2 before, obviously, it was GP2. So I think it's going to be really intriguing to throw a new car in the mix and see what happens. It could really mix things up, and teams that are top teams could drop a bit, and teams that are bottom teams at the moment, backmarker teams, whatever you want to call them, might get really good. It's like when the Formula 1 regulations change, everything just kind of is a mystery. And I think that mystery element is really exciting. And just looking at the drivers who've been announced so far, there's so many who I think have great potential. Both Prema teammates who I've already mentioned in this episode, Kimi Antonelli and Behrman, I think both of those are going to be amazing. Zach O'Sullivan stepping up from F3 is going to be really exciting. Ritomo Miata, I cannot wait to see what he does, because this new F2 car is rumoured to be very, very similar to the Super Formula car that he's just driven in and won in. He won that entire championship, and he won Super GT in 2023 as well. So I just think he is going to absolutely be one to watch in F2. Even though he's a rookie, I just think he's by far one of the most experienced drivers on this grid. I think he's going to be absolutely incredible. Obviously, we've got Gabriel Bortoleto stepping up from Formula 3 where he won that championship. Franco Colapinto stepping up as well. I just think there's going to be so much talent on that grid, and there's still 4 drivers to be announced. So even more talent is probably going to be added to the mix. I think Victor Martins has to have that last seat at ART. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this episode is uploaded, it might have already been announced. But at the moment, it hasn't been. But I can't wait. I honestly think F2 has one of the most stacked grids it's had in ages. And I'm so excited to see what happens. And that is all I'm going to say for now. But I will be, as I said, making a full predictions video. I'm probably going to predict the full championship and everything. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But for now, just know that the hype is real. Another series that I think is going to be amazing, but less drivers have been announced for this one, so it's harder to predict just how much talent there's going to be on the grid, but I'm sure these slots will be filled by amazing drivers, is FIA F3. Now, we've still got teams who haven't announced anyone yet for FIA F3. MP haven't announced any of their drivers, neither have PHM, neither have Rodin Carlin, so there are still quite a few slots up for grabs. Obviously, some teams have announced partial lineups, some have announced their full lineups, but either way, just looking at the drivers who've been announced so far, so many championship contenders. It's going to be so hard to make predictions for F3 this year because there are so many who I just think are going to be fighting for the championship. I mean, just looking at Prema, Dino Boganovic and Gabriele Mini, both in their second years of the championship, are surely going to be fighting for it. And then you look at Trident, who have Leonardo Fornaroli going into his second year with the team, and then two rookies, Sami Megachunov and Santiago Ramos. But Trident have proof that they can have a rookie and win the championship. Gabriel Bortoletto was a rookie and he won it. So it's not even a series where you can rule the rookies out, which is incredible. It's not even just the second year drivers, so I think are going to be fighting for this championship. Campos have Oliver Goethe, Mari Boyer, Sebastian Montoya, who I think all three of them are very talented. High Tech have got Luke Browning, who I think is undeniably going to be fighting for the championship. I am a huge Luke Browning fan, and obviously he won Macau a few weeks back now, and I just think that full momentum going into 2024 for Luke Browning. I think even though the 2023 F3 season didn't go too well for him, coming P15, which wasn't a bad result by any means, but I just feel like he's capable of better. I feel like 2024 will be his better, because I just think that result at Macau is going to absolutely motivate him and fire him up going into 2024. So I have no doubt that he will be a championship contender, and I just can't wait to see the rest of the grid be announced. I'm very, very excited to see who is filling all these TBA spots. I mean, one of them is going to be Taylor Barnard, which is quite funny because his initials, as we have established throughout 2023 watching him on the scoreboards, are TBA. So I mean, one of these that says TBA is correct. But I mean, I've heard he's going to PHM, so I'm going to assume it's one of those, but all the other TBAs are a mystery, and I'm excited to see the full grid be announced so I can make a prediction video that's probably going to end up being horrendously wrong. But you've got to throw some predictions out there sometime. But for now, I'm going to keep them to myself and just talk about how excited I am for the season instead, because it's just going to be unbelievable. I can really, really tell. I'm just going to speed run some more series that I'm excited for. I'm not going to go into them in as much depth as I've gone into Formula 2 and Formula 3 because there are just too many. But British F4, GB3 and GB4, I'm super excited for those, mainly because I'm hoping I'm going to make it down to some of the rounds that take place near me. So I'm very, very excited for those. Italian F4 as well is always super competitive, so I'm really looking forward to that. Formula 1 Academy, F1 Academy, I keep calling it Formula 1 Academy and it just does not roll off the tongue. It just sounds really weird. F1 Academy I'm really excited for. Just so many drivers who are of an insane calibre. To be honest, too good to be an F4 doing that series this year. So I just can't wait to see how they do. I mean, we've got Maya Woog, as we've said, who's stepping from Formula Regional, so she's obviously going to be super experienced going into it. There's rumours that Dorian Pin is doing it, and she's done WEC, so she's probably going to be unbelievably good. She proved when she did some F4 rounds at the end of 2023 that she is more than capable of stepping into F4 cars, so I just have such high hopes for her. And then just other drivers who are maybe coming back for a second year of F1 Academy. I'm hoping that Chloe Chong is coming back because I think she's really good. Bianca Bustamante will be in it, obviously, and I think she's probably going to have a decent year with McLaren backing. Leah Block, who's stepping over. I just think there are going to be so many good drivers. Tina Horseman, who's going to have Aston Martin backing. Abby Pulling, another driver who's got that second year experience and got that F1 backing from Alpine. I can't go through and list them all because there are too many, but they're the ones that spring to mind as just drivers that I really think are going to have a really good season in F1 Academy, aka basically the whole grid. But again, I'll formulate my predictions a bit better and come back with a full set of predictions that are actually coherent and I've put some logic into. But for now, just they're the ones that come to mind that I just can't wait to see in F1 Academy. I just think it's going to be incredible. And also FRECA. I've not even spoken about FRECA yet, but I just think FRECA is going to be brilliant in 2024 as well. I just think FRECA is such a competitive season with such a massive grid that I don't even know how I'm going to make predictions for it, because there are often over 30 drivers. But a driver that I'm really excited to see in FRECA is Marta Garcia, who is stepping over from F1 Academy. I'm really excited to see how that goes, the F1 Academy to FRECA trajectory that they've set up. I really, really hope it goes well for her. I've got such high hopes for her. I really, really just want it to go well. So yeah, no, really, really, really looking forward to seeing her in that, alongside drivers like Rafael Camaro, who I've already mentioned, Tuukka Tarpinen, who I've already mentioned, Ugo Tukwu, people like that. I mean, the whole grid, again, hasn't quite been announced for FRECA yet either. But there are so many great drivers who are in that, and Roman Belinsky and Nicola Lacourt, who are both doing FROC in 2024, will also be then stepping into the full season of FRECA. So it'll be interesting to see them kind of stepping through the Formula Regional Series and seeing how FROC can kind of prepare them for FRECA in 2024. So yeah, overall, it's going to be a very good year of motorsport. And I feel like I've not made any concrete predictions. It's been a bit wishy-washy. I've just been kind of talking through, you know, what's been announced so far, but I do truly think it's going to be a really, really good year for motorsport this year. I think every championship is going to be worth a watch, which means I'm going to get square eyes from the amount of motorsport that I am watching, but it's going to be worth it for sure. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll be back when all of the drivers have been announced for all of these championships, and I can make some more concrete predictions and try and guess who's going to win each championship, and we can come back at the end of 2024 and see if I'm right, or probably more likely laugh at how horrendous my predictions were. But yeah, this is kind of my 2024 preview at this point in time. Once we know more information, I'll obviously be able to reveal more about what I think is going to happen, but for now, this is just kind of where everything's at with the announcements and everything. I can't wait. Please let me know which championships you're going to be watching, what your plans are for 2024, who you think is a driver to watch in 2024, because there are so many. And I feel like people might have noticed drivers who maybe I have overlooked, and I might have mentioned some today that you maybe didn't realise were as strong as they are. So yeah, we'll have so many drivers to watch by the time you've made note of mine and I've made notes of yours, that we won't even know where to look. But that's the beauty of the feeder series at the moment. There are so many talented drivers that it really is hard going into a season to predict who's going to win it, because it really could be anyone, and I think that's what makes feeder series so exciting. So I will leave you all to it now. I hope you had a lovely Christmas, a lovely New Year, a great start to 2024, and I'll see you all again soon with another episode. I'll be uploading in 2024 every fortnight on Sundays at 10 a.m. So do keep an eye out in a fortnight's time for a new episode. Now I've got my uploading schedule sorted, and I'll see you then. This has been Gemma from Down to the Tyre. Goodbye.